and all sorts of other stuff, and we play a game.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up, and it is time to pick another language. Mord är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gidelim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant. Okay.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, ça, ah c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Man. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi Quattro grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile.
Sì, sì, ecco, la gente, è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to play some GeoGuessr, and we're going to look at some of the best and perhaps not so best of language learning YouTube. How's everybody doing today, chat? There we go. That's actually showing up the way it ought to. Where's... There we go. Okay, and let me just check that window. Looks good. Right, okay, we're gonna start out with some daily challenge. And see if I can remember that there is a time control. Okay. Palaborwa, Tanin tombstones. Liquor House Tavern. Something is telling me Southern Africa, but I'm not entirely certain. ZA, yes, we are in South Africa. Okay, we have palm tree. Hang on, that sign could have told us things. Best Performers College. Scheidemann Street. Palaborwa. Ah, Nonin. Ah, nomi da culo. Kahisano. Se on varmasti Etelä-Afrika, mutta se on iso maa. Vanclovu, se on isiZulua. Siis se ois joku paikka KwaZulu-Natalissa. Ah, buenas noches hacia Alemania. Guten Abend nach Deutschland, Ellie Bearded She. Gut. Und... is that a Devonian flag? That looked like black with a yellow cross. Or black with a yellow or a yellow orangish cross or something like that. But we've got a street name. Oh no. Sverige. Ruotsi. Joku paikka Ruotsissa. Mal sehen, ob wir das irgendwie ein bisschen einengen können. Es tu primera vez acá, ¿no, Eli Berdici? Siempre me alegro de ver a gente nueva, ¿no? Sí, Fischweg. Ah, entiendo. ¿Y de qué parte de Alemania? Hey, Riverune. Backatotan, Naturreservat. Ah, ok. Ah, yo vivía en Berlín por un tiempo. Vamos a decir alguna parte por acá. 4213. Ah, okay. Not terribly wrong. Zossen, Königs Wusterhausen. Okay. Lo que pasa es que tengo tres. Alemán, inglés y castellano. Me crié trilingüe. Okay. This feels like... Okay. So far we've got scuffed infrastructure. We've got mountains. And we've got fairly makeshift construction. But nothing that immediately screams out one particular venue for such things over another. Ja, Vorteile hat's. Okay, Sackgasse. Ah, okay, no men then. Oh, Ungstella. Oil City. Станция технического обслуживания. Это Россия. Но, к сожалению, Россия не очень большая страна. И поэтому ничего себе трудность обнаруживать точное местонахождение. Трасса GE Energy. Шиномонтаж. Шиномонтаж всегда. There is always, anytime they drop you in Russia or Ukraine, within like 5 seconds you will find a place to change your tires. На Ураль, на Кавказ. На Ураль. Уф. Пиздец. Магадан. $136 points. Oh, that somehow reminds me. Да? Даже по-русски говорю. И сейчас я тебе дам линк, ссылку на мой Discord. И даже фунгует. Okay. We're in Delhi. Delhi mein haan. When you see Devanagari, wait, bollocks. That was Gujarat. But I saw Devanagari. They're screwing me. They're like. Usually, literally every other time I've played this, you can always, whenever you see Devanagari script, you are 100% someplace in or near New Delhi. And they changed it up on me. This is, I think, the first time that Gujarat has ever been a place that I've been in GeoGuessr. Oh, well, it's a funny story how I learned Russian. When I was like 5 years old, I had this 1966 unabridged Random House dictionary in my room. And at the back of it, on the last page, there was a table, the alphabets of the world, of which there were 5. One of them was Cyrillic. And I found Cyrillic fascinating, and I thought the letters were really cool. And I decided I really wanted to know everything about Russian. And so, you know, with whatever I could find, which wasn't a whole lot in the 1980s in the US, I started teaching myself and just kind of kept going with it. Okay, 2666, still better than I did in Russia. Still considerably better. Okay, 5 of 5. We're in some kind of parkland. Keep left, so... And does that say give way? That says give way. Okay, we are... This does not look like Britain. I think we're probably someplace in Australia. Could be NZ. But my feeling, it's quite dry. Feels Australian. Reduce speed. Not reduce speed now. It's identical in every other respect except they take the word now out because, you know, maybe you want to reduce speed later. Change traffic conditions ahead. Righto. Yeah, this is Oz, which... Okay, and it's dry Oz. I mean, this could be a lot of places. Mildura! We're in Victoria, I know. Okay, Butte. Mildura is right on the boundary between... On the Murray River, right on the boundary between... NSW and Victoria. 4987. That is one of a handful of random outback locations that I actually would know just by name because it comes up in a lot of books that I've read. Okay, so the daily challenge, I was in the top 32%. That's actually fairly consistent. I'm usually around the top 30%. And now we're going to move to world without a time control. Midtown Gnui. Could Park Avenue, Greenway, Midtown Greenway. Okay, this is definitely Canusa. It's someplace in the US or Canada. It has kind of a Midwestern US vibe. I don't know. .612 area code. That doesn't help me much. So I don't really know where 612 is. 28th Street. We're someplace fairly urban, clearly. Okay, we're just gonna rock on Through to Park Avenue. Na, schlaf gut. Und also, ich werde morgen wieder da sein. Also um 16, um halb 4. Also halb 5 eigentlich. Nach unserer Zeit. Das wäre dann also halb 11 in Berlin und Umgebung. Also, hoffentlich sehen wir uns wieder. Bis denne. Okay, the Ted and Roberta Mann Foundation. Penny George Institute for Health and Healing. Abbott Health. Abbott Northwestern Hospital. Northwestern. Are we in Chicago? We could be in Chicago. If that's like... Oh, I miss Chicago. I haven't been there in ages. 35 West I-94, 10th Avenue. Okay, I feel like we're in Chicago. There's I-94. $294, 55. Okay. Make sure, is that what, did that say 35? 35 West. I-94 East and West and 35 West. So, first we gotta just get ourselves orientated on I-94. Okay, I-94. And then at some point it crosses with 35 West. Yeah, okay, so 35 West, though. There's 39. Where the hell's 35? Well, there's 355. But no, that's not it. Yeah, that is, yeah, 35, not 355. $43. There's 35. But no I-90 or I-94. So let's see, Des Moines. Does I-94 show up here? No. Thornton. Oh, Minneapolis. 35 West. There we go. Okay, not Chicago at all. Good thing that I didn't already guess. So we need I-94 where it meets 35 West. Park Avenue. There we go. Park Avenue, Chicago Avenue. Got it. It's always nice when there are interstates in the mix. Valtionimi saisi olla Suomea. Minnesota. Somewhere around here. 49.97. Okay, we are in the running to break my personal record, which was 24,991, like a month or so ago. Okay, we got these like gray and white painting on the roadside. Palm trees, Ramada. That looks like Arabic there. Okay, and that Betar Tobruk. Okay. Al Kayan. Hayeshut. But where exactly? Let me see. Pituach b'Shabbat v'Chag. Okay, that doesn't help. That's just open on Shabbos and holidays. Ashvuot. Yes, internet. There is internet. Wherever this is, there is internet. But where exactly are we? I mean, this feels kind of coastal. Wait, is that seaside? Yeah, that's seaside, okay. Very urban. I mean, I have my hunch where it is, but I'd like to see something more concrete. Netanya. Okay. $49.98. Okay, I am still in the running to break my personal record. Okay, we're in the US. We know that. 215 area code means nothing to me. Penn Village, on the other hand, I mean, that sounds like we're probably someplace in Pennsylvania. SEPTA, the only public transport system named after the plural of septum. It is the collective SEPTA of Pennsylvania. Okay, so we're by the Manayunk-Norristown line in southeast Pennsylvania at Ivy Ridge Station. We should be able to get a 5,000 on this. Okay, goodbye, Mupples. Possibly. Very possibly. I'm not sure. I'd have to actually go back on the VOD and figure out when I set the last record. I don't remember exactly when it was. Okay, Manayunk and Norristown are the places we're looking for right now. Pottstown, Lititz, Myerstown, Drexel Hill, Deptford, named after a small place just south of London. Roxburgh, Ambler, Fort Washington, King of Prussia. Swarthmore. Bala-Canoid. Bryn Mawr. Lots of Welsh. Manayunk. We got Manayunk. Norristown. Okay, so that's Manayunk. Somerton, Holland, North Wales. They just decided to call it North Wales. Okay. Now we just need to find Norristown. Hey, Badger. Winmere, Jenkintown. Falsington. Upper Chichester, Concordville, Birmingham, Allegiance, Cheney, Thornton. How you doing, Badger? Bluebell, Plymouth Valley, Norristown. Okay. So that's Norristown. And that is Manayunk. So, and we're at Ivy Ridge, which is between those. Well, I hope I can improve your mood. I hope I can. Roxburgh, Shaman Valley. Ivy Ridge, we got it. We got it. Oh, it's right on the... Okay, it's right on the river, right by Manayunk. That's easy enough. Wow, okay. So... find Manayunk again. Manayunk. Okay, and it is like northwest of Leverington Avenue. Oh, I'm glad. $5,000. 5,000. We're on 3 of 5, and I am actually really in the running to beat my record of 29,991. I mean 24,991. 29,991 would be like 4,000 points beyond 100%. That would be a really good score, I'm not gonna lie, but it seems implausible. Okay. Xiongshang Xijia. I believe, okay, okay, we're someplace that uses kanji. Thank you, Philadelphia, for having such excellent signage on the SEPTA lines. Because I couldn't have gotten that 5,000 point score without the SEPTA lines being so well signposted. Okay, I feel like we're probably in Taiwan. Zhonghua. Okay, a training center. Yeah, so far Taiwan checks out. Okay. Xiongshang 简确 does it say? Xinjiang 全民上路 Okay. Shit. That does not tell me. Yeah, okay, the street markings are also telling me Taiwan. But Taiwan is actually a fairly big place. I want to get the right city, at least. I think if I get the right city, I will be breaking my record. We're on 4 of 5. I have remarkably little leeway if I want to do this. So we'll see. If I don't, I don't. But I've gotten it ridiculously close. I think even if I'm not beating my current record, I may still be beating the one before it, which was still pretty high. But let's see if we can't actually stay in the running to beat the current one. Damn, too blurry. And I think I've just like got turned around or something. I mean, this feels pretty urban. But there are a lot of very urban places in Taiwan. Wait, what the hell just happened? I feel like I keep on running into quantum singularities here. Reduce speed, slow. Oh, that's useful. This is a Taiwanese stop sign. The same shape as most stop signs, but with a brush script ting, meaning stop. Taiwan Zheng. Okay, let's zoom out. Donggang Changhua. Qilong. Luodong. And it's on something called the West Sea Road. Shihailu. And the building materials are all made in Taiwan. Puho. Okay. Chamoy. Okay, I feel like that should be enough. Okay. That suggests to me that we're probably in Taipei. Chamoy or Quemoy. Not sure which phonetic system we're using. Hey, Ata. We're in high tension mode here as I try to figure out whether I'm going to break my current quite difficult to break record. How are you doing? There's a hot pot restaurant. My home steak. Like you have your away steak and you have your home steak. Oh, not bad, not bad. Kind of excited that I'm so close to breaking my record. If I could just figure out where in Taiwan we are. This actually feels kind of suburban, though. Little Ding Dong Science Theme Park. Or is that meant to be Little Ding Dong Science Theme Park? Is it a science theme park named Little Ding Dong? Or a theme park based on Ding Dong science? Somebody will be able to tell me. Oh. 遇到火龙通晓原理台中讲话Quemoy National University. You know, I've heard the name Quemoy before, but where the hell it is another question. Maybe Kaohsiung? Da She Feng Yi Fu Yin Zuo Ying I feel like I probably need more data. Sha Xiaomi Jin Cheng. Okay. But do we have a route number? Yes, it looks like we might. If we can get close enough to actually read the damn thing. Okay, here we go. Huandao. Xin Yan. Xin Yi. Ximen. Shimen. Guandu. Baoshan. Judong. Ermei. Lingfeng. Sounds interesting. Sha Le. Okay, that's like one half of the. That's one half of the name that I'm looking for. Huh, mate. What we need is Sha mate. Her mate. Sha Le. Okay. We've gotten someplace more urbanized. That should help us a little bit. Okay, Guningdo. Kinmen. Kinmen County. Hualien. Yilian, Changhua. Except I'm not seeing Kinmen here. Taitung, Kaohsiung, Tainan. I mean, could this be in... Could this be actually in Hong Kong? I don't think... No, no way. There's not... It couldn't possibly be in Hong Kong. What about Macau? No, not Macau. Definitely not Macau. It is... It has got to be Taiwan. For anyone just joining, I'm being very, very careful about this because I may well be I'm in the running for beating my personal record. And it all hinges right now on my figuring out Hotong Cat Village. That sounds charming. Where in Taiwan I am. And I have like the name of the town and I have the name of the county, and that ought to be enough, except I'm not finding this particular county anywhere. Ningxiong. And I really want to figure out exactly where this is. It's in Shamei in Kinmen County. Kanting Dawo. Taitung. I mean, I am nearly certain this has to be in Taiwan. Everything about it says Taiwan. Gunyingtou. Except that I am not finding these place names anywhere. Moe's Burger. Yanda. Yeah, there's a 7-Eleven. Yanda. I see what you did there. Jinxing. Shui to Jincheng. Okay, we're getting more place names. Theoretically, that should help. 新城、小林、南澳、龙山。Well, there's the cat village again. I don't see an icon either, actually. I mean, other than, like, the YouTube icon, which I imagine everybody recognizes and nobody would be asking about. That's a neat profile picture. Hsinchu, Yilan, Hualien, Taitung, Pingtung, Tainan, is there some really small county? Yeah, I like the colors. This is weird. In theory, I really ought to have enough to work this out. Unless I'm totally wrong about this being Taiwan and I just can't think of any other place it could be. Everything about it says Taiwan. I mean, I really don't think it's Hong Kong if they're advertising that the building materials are all made in Taiwan. That doesn't sound right. And I don't think they divide things into counties. Just for drill. Yeah, no, these place names are not right for it. Let's see. Oh no, we were already going in that direction. Oh no, we've got turned around again. Gotta be something that will... Oh no, that was Moe's Burger. We've already been there. Like a route number or something. Aye. Fujian. Fujian. That's another place name that I know I have heard, and that is not helping me at all at the moment. This is driving me mad. Minquan Lu, a human rights road. Quemoy. In Fujian, in the county of Kinmen. I'm still curious about the cat village, though. Taiwan Business Bank. Yeah, I mean, again, everything's coming up Taiwan, except I don't know where the hell this county is. And it doesn't seem to be on the map. Oh, Wind in the Willows. God, it's been so long, I don't even really remember it well. Okay. Fuck it. I'm gonna say it's someplace in Taipei and just hope. That I'm not totally wrong there. And then I'm going to take a little bio break, and I will be back shortly thereafter. Fuck. Okay, not beating the record today. Wait a second, is Kinmen County, is that still part of Taiwan, technically? Fucking hell. No wonder. I didn't know this existed. No wonder I was getting. No wonder it was making no sense to me. Okay. Just learned a thing about Taiwan. Bugger. Quick bio break. We'll be back shortly. Yes, I had no idea that there was a bit of Taiwan that close to the mainland. Bloody Taiwan holding out on us.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff. And we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So, anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital es
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mod för ett tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gidelim. Uyum. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Man. Igen. Ja. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangba, okay, Bangbas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Généreux, dégénéré, généré, dégénéraux, dégénéré.
And I'm back. And now I'm curious, chat, and I wonder if you join me in being curious. 'Cause I can understand how Taiwan all the way over here. There's enough salt water there that geographically I can see how it would be too difficult to dislodge the Kuomintang from Taiwan, from the island. But this is right there. This is right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is right by Zhangzhou. It's right by Xiamen. This is 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 right by Xiamen like, how the hell did they end up not... Okay. Okay, the islands are part of a larger province that remained ROC controlled. The People's Republic gained control of the mainland portion in 1949. The islands were under military administration during the Cold War. Travel restrictions were not lifted till 92. Provincial administration was transferred to the national and county, but... Okay, what I want to know is just how this ended up still being part of the ROC. Because it's right there. I mean, that wouldn't be hard to take, it seems to me. Okay, during the late stages of the Chinese Civil War, the ROC lost control of mainland China, including most of Fujian province, and was forced to relocate to Taiwan. Okay, got it. While the victorious CPC forces established the PRC in 49. Got it. Okay, fine. The Battle of Guningtou, however, ROC forces, not ROC, there's some similarity there, were able to defend the island of Quemoy, which is also Kinmen, just off the coast of Fujian, and has continued to maintain a separate Fujian provincial government. Okay, so then they moved it out. Okay. So most of the authority at the Fujian province level has been delegated to the two county governments of Kinmen and Yanqiang. Okay, so, like, they just never quite managed to dislodge the Kuomintang from those islands, and that's just kind of stayed that way. I had absolutely no idea. So, essentially, my failure to break my personal record just now, that is the Chinese People's Liberation Army's fault, because that's the only reason they couldn't manage to get Kinmen, and because they couldn't get Kinmen, I had to know that was part of Taiwan, and I didn't. So that was Mao's fault. Or Chiang Kai-shek's fault. You can kind of go either way on it. But damn. Okay, this looks like Britain. My immediate feeling is we're in Britain. Okay, except those bins kind of make me think we're not. I'm not sure about those bins. There's someplace very pretty and wooded. I mean, it's very nice. Oh, left side driving. GeoGuessr API is being annoying. Damn. That. Oh, wow. Like, I can't believe that. Okay, this begins to look like Britain again. Oh, hang on. Reopen closed tab. I want to have my maps. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is feeling British. But there's not much signposting here. Oh no, we're in Ireland. An Garda Síochána. Kilconneran. Yeah, okay, so we are in the 26 county state. I do apologize for saying it looked British. Yes, we are. We're in the Free State. Hey, Hexa Definitive. If you're just joining in, I was so close to beating my personal record, but Mao failed to take part of Fujian province, and it created a bit of Taiwan that I didn't know existed, and it fucked it up for me. Korib. Okay, that helps. Okay. Korib, that is very familiar. I feel like that's like a Dublin suburb, but I'm not sure. Goatstown. Ballsbridge, home of one of the best pubs in history. Toners. Easily one of the best pints of Guinness you will ever get. And an amazing beer garden. Oh, here we go. We're on a motorway. This will give me some... Okay, yes, we're on the M6. Kiltulla, Lohray, Portomna. And we are northwest of Dublin. M7, M4. Where's the bloody M6? M3, M1. Oh, there's M6. Here we go. By Athlone and Horseleap and Kilbeggan and... So where the fuck is Corrib? Oh, it's by... Oh, it's like... It's by Galway, isn't it? One thing I can't get with in the Bavarian beer universe is bloody white beer, Weissbier. That stuff is, I find, painful. Lochray. Didn't we just see a sign for Lochray? Yes, we did. Right by Athenry. Knock on glass. Kiltala. I remember one time with my host family in Munich. We were having something that I didn't quite like, so and we were drinking white beer with it. So I was drinking the white beer to wash down the stuff that I wasn't particularly keen on, except that I discovered that I find white beer absolutely repugnant. So I was like gulping down this repugnant white beer to wash down a dinner that I was really not happy with, and then eating the food to like get rid of the taste of the white beer. And, you know, like 20 years later, I was like, you know, maybe I was going to sing that. Maybe I... $49.80, okay. I was close, though. I thought maybe I would like it better than I had, and so I got up myself a bottle of it to just try it out, and I had a gulp of it, and no, I still hate it. It's terrible stuff. Christ, I was so close. I was so close. I would have, I mean, if I hadn't completely, if I hadn't lost it on the Taiwan round, I would have just... I would have been more precise about that, but there you go. Okay. Thinking we might change gears. And, see if we've got anything interesting to look at. Fluency, the secret system you haven't tried. Okay, I'm kind of curious about the secret system I haven't tried. Or maybe I have tried it. Maybe it is only a secret to someone other than myself. I have no idea. But this is from Luca Lampariello. His stuff is generally quite worthwhile, and we're gonna check it out.
Majority of language.
Copiar URL del video. And drop in the link in chat, and we're gonna find out.
Learners never actually achieve the C level at all. Your active ability to utilize the language most certainly will not. You have to go out of your way in order to actually achieve an active ability, C level ability in the language. If you're interested, if you'd like to improve your German, then please do come stop by and check it out.
Hi everyone, I'm super happy to have a very, very special guest. And his name is?
David Allen Martin II, or just David, also fine.
So I just find that Weissbier, I can't quite describe what it tastes like. It just tastes objectionable to me. It's like somebody turned... Okay, this is going to be some weird-ass synesthetic bullshit. It's like somebody turned down the treble far too low on the beer, where the treble is hops.
So, David is, first of all, a fantastic guy, but also one of a kind when it comes to speaking foreign languages, and that's the reason why I invited him here. We've been talking about collaborating for, I don't know, how long? It's been 2 years. Many years, eons. And there is also a surprise for you, a surprise in store for you at the very end. So you might want to sit down, give the video full attention, take a bunch of notes, and let's get into it.
First of all, thanks for having me, and it's great to finally be here talking with you, Luca, live. I'm from San Diego, California. I'm a very passionate language learner and language instructor. I've been learning languages for more than 20 years now, and living in Germany for most of that time, with the exception of 1 year in China and 2 years in Spain. But I come from relatively humble linguistic beginnings. I grew up speaking only English, and it wasn't until later in life that I discovered the joy of learning foreign languages. I did, however, at a very young age begin loving my own native language, English, and reading in particular, and I think that's what kind of sparked my interest in
I mean, and reading is huge
in
for
general.
pleasure reading for acquiring grammar in particular.
Short version, I would say. Professionally, I wear a few different hats. Finally ended up
that joke can no longer be made. Elon Musk ruined that reference by deciding that it was somehow funny to wear more than one hat at one time. He's the killer of already not particularly good jokes.
My dream of founding a company based on teaching people to learn languages more efficiently and especially more enjoyably. It would have been 6 years back now with both my brothers who are software developers, and we essentially transform my language learning methods into software, which we then provide
interesting
to students to help them to learn languages faster and have more fun in the process.
You were saying that you finally fulfilled the dream of creating a company, and that's great. I think the cool thing is to share the knowledge and the experience that you have when it comes to learning how to learn a language. Because people...
So, this is starting to be the stuff that I was going to be interested. What are his thoughts on how to learn a language? We're going to find out.
All the tools, all the resources nowadays, but they still lack sometimes the know-how. How do you learn a language? And I can tell you guys that David knows a thing or two about learning foreign languages. Is there a particular event, a person, or an experience that sparked your interest, that spawned the language monster in you, so to speak?
That's a great question, and funnily enough, I've told you this before, but you and Steve Kaufman actually were among my, I would say, earliest.
Kaufman's Twitter is truly painful to look at, but when it comes to language learning methods, I think he has fairly sound ideas.
Inspirations in terms of seeing, and Richard Simcott as well, both of whom you've obviously had on your...
I've had Richard Simcott I've met a few times at Polyglot Gathering things.
Show or your channel multiple times. I would say the three of you are those individuals who inspired me, earliest on, and also the early days of YouTube. This would have been 2007, 2008, 2009. thereabouts. And I didn't actually know that such a thing as a polyglot existed. Certainly not as
This
a
mythical creature.
this mythical creature, this polyglot. I distinctly remember watching, your early videos. I believe you lived in Spain at the time, and you were just chatting away in French and Swedish. I remember those. And Dutch, for that matter, and I've just been blown away by the fluency and in particular by the pronunciation.
Language.
Well,
Ik beweer niet dat ik perfect Nederlands spreek, maar
Just really well, and what I mean by really well,
I'm
is
gonna
very
skip
formally
around a
on
little
top of
bit.
that with native-like pronunciation, German, but also other languages. I recently listened to, actually, I watched a video of yours speaking Dutch.
vandaag heb ik weer een video voor jullie allemaal, deze week in het Nederlands. Ik
I mean, very nice pronunciation.
beweer niet dat ik perfect Nederlands spreek, maar ik wilde jullie allemaal op zijn minst een idee geven van hoe de Nederlandse taal klinkt en een beetje praten over mijn persoonlijke motivatie om Nederlands te leren.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful pronunciation.
I was verbaasd, so I was quite surprised of how good your pronunciation in Dutch is.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would not think that he is not a native speaker listening to that pronunciation.
Aber ich wollte auf jeden Fall auch mit Jack auf Deutsch sprechen, weil, wie gesagt, er spricht hervorragendes Deutsch, bei dem man eigentlich gar nicht denken würde, dass du kein Muttersprachler bist. Könntest du ein bisschen darüber...
Yeah, I mean, German also bloody good.
Aber bei mir weiß ich das. Ich bin es aber nicht gewohnt, andere Nicht-Muttersprachler des Deutschen, vor allem Muttersprache des Englischen kennenzulernen.
And also, you speak a bunch of languages. Can you tell us a little bit about how many languages do you speak and what is more or less...
To draw attention to my sibling and cousins trying to make money by washing cars, and the picture was put in the paper of me pointing one way and the sign pointing another way.
the level in each language?
Well, German is the kind of the most obvious one to start with, I would say. And as I said before, I mean, when I
Two hats.
When I hit the streets in Germany, people think I'm German.
I can tell.
If anyone...
Yeah, I mean, I would, having just listened to that, I would say definitely no exaggeration there. I would not I certainly would not guess that he was not a native speaker, that he...
If anyone notices anything at all, it's generally that they think, well, he's German, but he spent a long time outside of Germany. And so, because I will sometimes throw in English expressions or whatever.
Which, I mean, actually does not scan as not native German. I mean, Anglicisms are all over German these days. It's completely normal to do that, so that doesn't even... that wouldn't really sort of read as unnatural.
Obviously a lot of English is used in German. There are a lot of Anglicisms, although oftentimes the pronunciation is closer to British English than it is to American English. But sometimes I'll just kind of throw things in there, and it throws people off because they think,
it does.
He's German, but he sounds really American when he speaks English. Like I said, little kind of inconsistencies, but you notice those also with Germans who have lived in a foreign country for a long time.
Okay, so this is Spanish. Let's hear him in Spanish.
And so at some point I realized that the things that I had discovered in terms of being able to work on and improve your pronunciation, that most people are not aware of those things. And then I started to systematize that knowledge and kind of turn it into a science. And that's now what I teach. So then beyond German, because that was kind of the first language that I achieved a very high level in, Spanish would have been the next one. I moved to Spain, lived there for 2 years.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, living in San Diego, that would be fairly easy to achieve a high level. I mean, Mexico's right there, and Southern California is full of Spanish speakers. But, okay, Spain.
Very different experience learning Spanish, because German I had studied before I moved to Germany. Spanish I hadn't studied at all. except for the one semester in the 6th grade or 7th grade. So I got to Spain and no formal knowledge of Spanish. Donde está el baño? And me gusta la cerveza. Those were the two phrases that I knew, and that was it. But I already knew a great deal about learning languages at that point because I had already learned German to quite a high level in the year and a half that I was there initially in Germany. So I basically just started getting comprehensible input every single day, watching TV as much as possible, all the things that I did, to successfully learn German, and then just trying to speak as much as I possibly could.
What does your...
Oh, skipping ahead, these are very short chapters. They apparently sort of flitted around on topics quite a bit in this. So I'm skipping ahead. This is apparently his learning routine. This is the stuff I'm curious about
most. What does
most.
a language learning routine look like when you start a new language?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I kind of was initially attracted to your work in particular, though, was because I saw that systematicity in terms of your
Systematicity. Never actually heard anyone say that before.
I early on, as far back as I can remember, I was reading your original blog, Polyglot's Dream, I believe it was called.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Yes, good times, good old times. Yes,
good old times, and I loved the fact that you shared quite a bit, and Steve Kaufman does this as well, about your kind of thought process behind what it is that you do. I've met many very successful polyglots who don't really share their methods, or sometimes they just don't have methods.
When are you going to share? Okay, I'm sure he must. This is a long interview. This is a long conversation. But I'm waiting to hear what his methods are, and each time it's it comes a little bit, he's sort of... It's like an asymptote, the graph keeps on going down and down and down towards zero, never actually hits zero. Okay,
use whatever they can find.
Are we about to hear about it?
Figure it out, but they don't necessarily share their philosophy, and so that insight was very helpful to me, and I realized that there were other people who basically spend all day thinking about how languages actually are learned and what happens cognitively in the brain. When I first started learning language, my approach used to be quite a bit different. I would just buy a book. For Dutch, for example, I bought Teach Yourself Dutch. And
which of the series, of the sort of language self-teaching series, I have to say Teach Yourself and Colloquial are pretty good ones. I like them both because they tend to be very dialogue orientated. And as a way to get sort of a general introduction to things about the language, they're not bad.
I'd actually just listen kind of around the clock to the audio before I ever even read a single word.
Yeah, good approach, because it helps you get used to the way the language sounds. It helps you get used to how the syllables are structured and stuff like that. That is not a bad idea at all.
Working out, and just to acclimate myself to the sounds of the language.
Yeah.
Obviously, especially when things start to stick, or rather when they're repeated a lot, then they start to stick.
Luca has very good lighting.
What I realized was that there was a lot of frustration involved, or I say associated with not understanding. And one of the problems that we have as adults is that we get bored rather quickly, and we want to understand everything. Right? Children are kind of much more forgiving in that sense because they're much more willing to accept vagueness, things that are unclear, and when they don't understand 100% of something, they don't really get bent out of shape about it, as we would say.
Yeah, I think he's hitting on a very important point here, because being okay with not understanding a lot of things definitely helps in terms of the sort of patience and endurance that you need when dealing with a totally new language. Because if you get frustrated at the fact that you're not understanding a whole lot, or not quite the same thing, there's a whole lot that you're not understanding, then it will be difficult for you to stick with it. But if you get used to the fact that, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff you don't understand, and you're just listening for the bits that you do, and getting used to the sound of the rest of it, that's a pretty good mind space to approach things in.
And so I very quickly realized I want to understand as well as possible, but I need to be exposed to authentic, especially audio materials. So
yeah, for example, I'm reading The Firm in Marathi. I've mentioned that on stream before, and I have to say, I've discovered Marathi is not at all like Hindi. I mean, they're the same. They're both Indo-Aryan languages. They're both from Sanskrit, but they're from totally different Prakrits. We watched an interesting video on that a couple of weeks ago. But there's a whole lot I do not understand in Marathi. This is my first exposure to the language, and you just have to be sort of accepting of the fact that there's going to be a lot that you don't understand in your target language, and just sort of push through that, and be attentive to the things that you do understand.
It can also be video materials, but the important thing is the audio, because if I'm not exposed to the audio, then whenever I start speaking, if I put more time into reading than listening, when I start speaking, I'm going to speak and also sub-vocalize with something that is artificial. It is not the actual language the way that it's spoken by native speakers. So I need to have the audio, and I also need to be able to understand. And what I very quickly realized was that if I had the audio and the text in the foreign language, let's just say Spanish, for example, then I could translate that. Now, back in the day, that was Google Translate, which was not great. But
I mean, it still is not great. I mean, it still sucks.
Enough. It was enough to help me to understand roughly, let's just say 80 to 90%, and that's all that you need. So
I mean, what I find useful, this is why I like translated editions as a way to start, get a good start in a target language. Because if I'm familiar with the original, and the original is just available, then, if I see a sentence that I don't quite understand, and I'm trying to make sense out of how it works and everything, I can just go and look at the original, and it's not like some crappy AI slop pseudo translation or something like that. It is the actual thing, and assuming it is well translated, and I mean these things tend to be fairly well translated, you can start to look at it and you can say, I mean, if you really, if you want to, you can sort of look at it and say, okay, here are the words that I definitely know are this is this, this is this, this is this, character names or something like that, that you're clear on, and then you can start to, make it line up in your head a little bit, and that can be quite helpful. It helps to have, translations that are accurate.
Listen to the foreign language audio, and I would read along in my native language, in English. And that was the beginning of my language learning method.
Interesting. I would find that hard to concentrate on.
Which involves exactly that. So essentially, what I do is I translate, and I know that you work with translation as well. I translate both at the sentence and at the word level. And that way, I can understand not only what is...
Oh, hang on, let me pull that back up. Okay, here we go. Translation cubed. We have Das ist mir wurscht. No importa, me da igual, I don't care, makes no difference to me. And then we have this literal translation, that is for me, to me, sausage. Eso es a mí, para mí, salchicha. Sibo. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is a good example, I have to say, of using translations in language learning, which is something that I do. Like with Japanese, it was really important to use translation, actually. In a sense, it really helped me as a translator, but it also helped me as a Japanese speaker, because seeing really good idiomatic translations next to, authentic Japanese phrases and things like that really kind of helped me make the connections, because the way Japanese is structured, it works very differently to Indo-European languages. So it actually kind of helped to see those things lined up and realize, yeah, these things don't match up one-to-one. It's a matter of understanding the vibe and everything and connecting with that. And I found it very helpful. So this is actually, okay, I mean, this seems quite useful to me.
And at the word level. And that way I can understand not only what is being said, so the intention of what is being said, but also how it's being said. One of the
this makes sense.
Ich verstehe nur Bahnhof in German.
This is a favorite. Ich verstehe nur Bahnhof, or nur Bahnhof verstehen, literally means I only understand railway station.
What that means is, like, yeah, that can mean two things. That can mean somebody really doesn't understand anything, or it can mean that they're pretending that they don't understand anything. You can hear it both ways.
Means I don't understand the damn thing, or I don't understand, barely anything at all, if anything at all, right? But it literally means I understand only train station.
Yeah.
So I need to have both of those translations to truly understand that.
And it's also a matter of understanding the structure of these things. Because if ich verstehe nur Bahnhof, you get that structure. In German there is this structure of expressions. And when you know that this structure exists, you can play around with it. You can make jokes with it. You can say, ich verstehe nur Stirnlappenbasilisk. Or something like that. You throw something else in there that's unexpected, but fits in the overall structure of the expression, and you can play around with it, and you can make jokes with it, and stuff like that. This makes sense. This makes sense to me.
That phrase in German, ich verstehe nur Bahnhof, means...
And yes, pronunciation's amazing.
I barely understand it at all, but what it's saying is I understand only train station. If I have both of those things right away, when I then also listen to that phrase, I have a very deep understanding of how to say that phrase and how Germans think when they actually try to express that particular thought. Now,
this is good. This makes sense.
That over many thousands of sentences where I'm always understanding exactly what's being said at the sentence and at the word level, I start to very quickly, even as a complete beginning.
And I will say, as a translator, it is also useful. At a certain point, you could just do this in your head. At a certain point, when you get to a certain point in the language, you don't really need to think about it a whole lot. You don't need to really visualize it. You can kind of do this in your head, and you can say, okay, so this is how that's said. And sometimes, at a certain point of language acquisition, it just sort of comes naturally, and you don't think about it at all. And so every once in a while, you have these surprising moments where it's like, wait, that makes absolutely no sense, the way that this is being said, but it means something very funny in it. When you try to put that into English, it's actually hilarious. What was the Dutch phrase?
Gain an intuitive feeling for how the language is actually spoken.
Yeah.
At the kind of logical...
So far, this is making a lot of sense what he's saying. I do similar things.
Does make sense, and I was just jotting some notes because I have so many things to say, and I want to play the devil's advocate and ask you a few questions about this. The first one, and you can elaborate a little bit on that, is the fact that a lot of people tend to think that translation is a bad thing. You hear it all the time. You should not translate. You should just listen to content that you can understand, comprehensible content, and then immerse yourself.
And I would say, that should be your main line. If you're only doing this sort of translation exercise, I don't think you're going to get very far. Met de koekjes en kalfjes praten. If you're only doing this sort of thing, I don't think you will get very far with it because it doesn't really help with acquisition. But as something that supports engagement. There's a difference there. There's a skill. If you're talking with them or if you're talking about them. Kan ook met de koekjes en kalfjes gepraat wordt. Maar, yeah. So, but as a thing that supports your engagement with comprehensible input, it can be useful. It's all about how you go about it, and it's about percentages and stuff. And I think with different languages, the percentage you're doing, the percentages will work out differently. Like if you're getting, exactly. Exactly. But if you're dealing with a language that functions very differently to languages that you're used to, then you might use more of it. And if you're dealing with a language that actually, on the whole, functions very similarly to languages that you're accustomed to, then you might use less of it.
but I think as a supporting, it would fall under what I would call priming, I think. As sort of a supportive element, I think it can be very useful.
And then you're going to get better and better. I think comprehensible input is important, immersion is important, but when it comes to comprehensible input, the main difference, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm really eager to hear your opinion, is that especially if a language is very distant from yours, so let's consider, for example, an American Mark, right, who wants to learn, say, Spanish, or Dutch, for that matter, let's consider Dutch. Dutch is a very close language, so you can immerse yourself in...
Okay, this is exactly what I was just saying, it sounds like.
Dutch and maybe slowly understand things, and I'm just referring to the fact that you can, let's suppose the Mark is just listening and reading in Dutch, comprehensible input, things that, for example, he reads a text and things are explained. This is a very slow method, but it can work.
I mean, I think it will vary whether it's a slow method or not. Like with Dutch, for example, I mean, again, very close to English. There's a lot. They have a lot in common. I think if you've got the right materials there, it could potentially be a fairly quick method. At the very least for developing comprehension and stuff. But say if you're learning Marathi as a native English speaker who doesn't have any background in Northern Indian languages or anything like that, then you might have more difficulty. And if it's like Japanese or Korean, definitely. And then you might rely more on this to help you understand how these structures are coming together, what the thought process is.
If Mark has a bilingual text or can create a text himself, and as you were saying, he not only sees the sentence, like sees the translation, meaning how the sentence, the meaning is conveyed in another language, because translation is the art of conveying the equivalent version, but not necessarily the literal version.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is one of the things that's really difficult as because a lot of people think if you're bilingual, then you're a good translator. And that's not necessarily true, because there's more to it than that. Being a translator means not just that you can, because being bilingual means you can interact with the world in two languages, or, you know, more languages if you're like trilingual, whatever. But translating means making those languages interact with each other. That is way more complicated a lot of the time. And, I mean, that's another thing where this sort of, looking at these sorts of translations can be really helpful. Like, that is one of the things I really found useful with Japanese. Because Japanese has lots of stuff where it's called taiyaku, which is like side-by-side translation and original. Like, you can get screenplays of movies. There's a whole series of these. Screenplays of movies in the original English, but also with Japanese translation on the very next page, side by side. And I have a bunch of these. I have like Good Will Hunting. I think I've got 4 Weddings and a Funeral someplace. The first one I bought was The Fugitive when I was actually in Japan a long, long time ago. And that movie was fucking new. And that was an extremely helpful thing because you could see these like idiomatic expressions in English and how that stuff was rendered in Japanese, and you could start to see the thought processes and everything in order to get the equivalent vibe. And I think that really did help me bring my Japanese to the next level.
So that you have the literal version, then you have all the information you need in order to understand the content as quickly as possible. That's the first thing. So my first question to you is, what do you reply to people who say, no, you should never use translation because it's bad, then you're going to translate for the rest of your life? And
that has not been my experience.
This
I will
bad
say.
habit is going to get...
I have translated for the rest of my life, like professionally. I mean, I'm a literal translator, so in that sense. But in terms of, and on a certain level, yeah, as a mental exercise, thinking about it, like if a song comes on the radio or something like that, my brain will involuntarily start trying to translate, come up with like a singable version of it in some language or other. In fact, when I'm like watching TV shows, I'll be watching like a show in English or something like that, and my brain will start trying to give the dialogue and interpret the dialogue in Afrikaans or Japanese or something like that. So in a sense, yeah, I am doing it for the rest of my life, but not in the sense of needing to do it in order to comprehend what I'm hearing. It's just that it's a mental exercise I'm constantly doing.
Brain in your brain, you never gotta get rid of it. First question. Then I have
I had that question when I presented T3 Translation Cubed at the Expo Lingua last year.
Yes.
That's where we met in 2019.
Expo Lingua. And now I'm curious because maybe I should be going to these things. Expo Lingua Berlin. Die Expo Lingua ist jedes Jahr wieder ein unvergessliches Erlebnis. Excellent Expo. What is it? Yeah, but what is it exactly? Okay, content creators. What exactly is? I'm guessing it's like language related content creators and stuff like that, or something. Lindenstraße, Berlin. Okay, this is last year's. Charlotte Donnelly, that's the name is familiar. Berthold Forstmann, never heard of him. Okay. Okay, this looks interesting. And apparently it was in Berlin last year. I wonder if it's in Berlin every year. I don't know, maybe I should be going to these sorts of things, although where I would get the money to do it is an open question at the moment. But, and in that context, let me just say, if you're enjoying the stream and you would like to support the stream, it is very much appreciated at the moment. Support for my various projects like this is a real lifeline, and I really, really need it. I'm trying to raise about... right now at about $3,000 to just cover living expenses and some back bills that I have to cover, and all support in that is very much appreciated. Helps me keep doing this and just helps me continue living and stuff. I'm gonna drop a little link in the chat for anyone who would like to make a contribution. If you can't, you really shouldn't feel at all bad about that. I understand it is a rough... that's the wrong link. Don't click on that. Nobody should feel pressured to do so if they can't, but if they can and they want to, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. So let's get back to this.
I met at the Expo Lingua 2019, and last year I had the pleasure...
And we liked each other immediately. We
did, indeed, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
It was a surreal experience for me because I felt like I had already known you for 12 years when I actually finally met you. But absolutely, yeah, we hit it off quite well immediately. But last year I had the opportunity and the honor of representing Linguathor, my company, and Translation Cubed with my own stand, along with my brother, at the Expo Lingua, and I was also the moderator of various panels, and I also had the opportunity to present T3 to a larger panel.
Okay, now I'm going to look at skipping again. Active reverse translation. He lists as level 3, and now I'm curious about this.
At that point, that's when you start to only focus on the third level of translation in T3, that's why it's called T3, which is what I call active reverse translation, or ART, where you're actively translating your...
Also called T3 because it's trying to kill Sarah Connor.
...into the foreign language, but you're doing it using the word level decoding. So to use the example of I understand only train station, the German is hidden, and I have to retranslate understand only train station back into German. But because the words that I'm seeing are German grammar or represent German grammar, I'm actually not building the bad habit of translating literally from my native language. Because if I said, I don't understand Jack, as we would say in English, or...
Ich verstehe nicht mal Johannes. It doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't understand a dang thing, right? Then I would get into I would try to say something like thing or whatever, because I would say that in English, in German, but that's not how a German would express that thought.
Yeah.
Translation is good as long as your goal is eventually to wean yourself off it, and that's exactly the way that I designed Translation Cubed, to promote precisely that.
Fantastic, David. The thing is that everything you said, that's exactly what I do. It's surprising how, like, we've talked about this at length, but it's surprising how we've come to the same conclusions, and the method that we use is very, very similar. The principles are the same, because I always talk about principles being universal, but the methods that we have developed independently are extremely similar. Now, there's a couple of other things I want to say. I know we don't want to go off a tangent, but we're really passionate about this. I really like education. I like learning how to learn neuroscience. This is all combined.
Oh yeah, this stuff is quite fascinating to me as well.
The first thing that I will say, I'm just taking a look at all these, the notes of the notes of the notes. So this is getting longer and longer. The very first thing that I want to say is that you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the fact that you want to wean yourself off from translation, meaning that translation is a tool. Translation.
I don't know Assimil well enough to. I have one Assimil book. I have somewhere El Catalán sin Esfuerzo, and I've never really looked too much at it. I skimmed it at some point years ago when I bought it, so I don't really know their method well enough to comment.
Is a tool. It's like when you look at let's consider, for example, a hammer. Take a look at a hammer. You can build a house. You can build something, a wall, a house, whatever, and you can also kill someone. So translation is literally a tool, and you can use it in different ways depending on what your goal is. As a beginner, the way you use it, the way I use it, is just to use translation to use your native language or any other language you have under your belt in order to facilitate the comprehension of a foreign language. You decode a foreign language at word level, at a sentence level.
Yeah, and I think on a certain level, even when we're not doing it consciously, we're doing this. Because each time you're, because the structures that you have in your head for how a language works just get expanded each time, and each time they get expanded, a passive phase and an act. I mean, I think that makes sense. I think we naturally have a passive and an active phase, but I think the more structures you have in your head that are familiar to you in terms of how a language can work, the easier it is to get used to new ones. Like, if you're already used to, like, a language that is subject, verb, object, for example, like Japanese, Korean, or Hindi, then when you encounter a subject, verb, object, say, in Farsi, for example, it's not going to throw you so much because you're already used to formulating your phrases that way.
Level by using a language that you know, either your native language or a language you know well. You do it maybe for 3 months, and then once you get to let's say a critical mass, I like this concept, like you use physics jargon, critical mass or language core, whatever you want to call it, you got a clear understanding of the structures of the language, sound structure, syntax, and that in and of itself is going to allow you to then acquire a language naturally, because now you have all the means to acquire a language. Now, interestingly enough, this is called the weak interface hypothesis.
Okay, I've not heard of this before.
We've been talking about this for quite some time recently, because Stephen Krashen talks about this CI, comprehensible input, and the weak interface hypothesis is called weak because it just basically says you use your deliberate knowledge as an adult in order to then acquire a language.
Ah, okay, so you in the sense that your existing linguistic competences are an interface between you and a language in which you currently do not have adequate competence. Yeah, okay, yeah. Following, makes sense.
Facilitates the acquisition of a language. And the other point I wanted to make is the fact that you can use translation at different levels. Now, you call it reverse translation, I call it exactly the same. I've never talked about this on YouTube, but at a higher level, to onwards, and after going to attending a conference interpreting school in Paris, they created this method, which is probably very similar to yours. Maybe we do it in a different way, but I use, for example, articles. It depends on the kind of language you want to develop.
Oh, by the way, I just noticed the zoomed in version of your avatar, Atta, and I think it looks much even cooler closer up. I like the variable lighting on it. I hadn't noticed that in like profile photo size. Really cool image.
And then I tell a person who's got a very high level, let's say a B2 in French, just an example, and then I ask him, hey, take this article in English and translate it into French. Then they have the article in English, the article in French, and they can test themselves. And you can see how they're amazed at the gaps they have. Like by translating, you're forcing yourself out of your comfort zone. You can test, you can do this with a tutor, you can do this by yourself. But
I mean, and that's the thing. And this is one of the things you experience a lot as a translator, because you can have perfect comprehension in both languages, and it's still often hard to actually switch, to actually transfer something from one to the other, because you're having to totally reshape a thing that may actually be perfectly shaped in the language it's in. And you have to somehow manage to make that fit into a completely different environment. It is very hard stuff.
Just to demonstrate that translation can be used in very creative ways if you want
Yeah.
to. It doesn't get in the way of speaking.
Absolutely.
Sorry if this was a little bit verbose, but I wanted to chime in because when you
in fact, I'm doing something very similar with some of the Finnish comprehensible input I'm using. Because I'm reading this thing, velvoiteoikeus, which means the law of obligations. As in what in common law systems would be considered contract and tort law. And so a lot of the time, structurally, the terminology in Finnish is very similar to the terminology in German, which makes sense because they both come from Roman law. They do it differently, but terminologically it's very similar. And so often I will find myself just sort of mentally translating what I'm reading into German as I read it.
Just when you think about it, it just blows my mind how similar our methods, methodology, strategy, and whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. See, to me, that was mind-blowing
I'm
initially. But less so as I go on, because I realized, it was really shocking when I started to encounter YouTube polyglots, legit ones and everything, and realized they were all doing very similar things to what I did in order to acquire languages. I had always felt that what I had done had more to do with methods I had worked out than, people were saying, oh, it's just, you're a language genius or something like that. And it's like, that did not match my experience. My experience was that I had found things that worked, and when I was able to apply them, they worked. And then I encountered all these people who were doing very, very similar things a lot of the time to acquire languages in comparatively large quantities to a relatively high level. And I realized, actually, it makes perfect sense that a lot of our effective methods, those of us who have done it effectively, are going to be converging around certain first principles that we're applying differently sometimes, because we're all essentially hacking the language acquisition device. We've figured out the things that it likes in order to actually acquire languages, and we've come up with methods that work for us to give it what it likes. And so, when the language acquisition device gets the things that it likes, then, competence in a new language is what comes out of that. And so it's kind of natural that we're all of us who have actually done this successfully are in enough separate, in enough different examples that it can work as data for us to derive a method from it, that it would be converging around very similar ideas.
What I'm really curious about, though, is the following. You said that you use translation, TQ translation or T3 translation, the translator, so your method. Again, people, I'm going to leave all the links in the description box. You're going to find everything in there.
Actually, I just noticed the time, and it is time for me to wrap up. However, I'm going to just drop this link in there for anyone who missed it earlier, because it looks like a very interesting discussion. We might come back to it tomorrow. And I will be back tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks to everyone who joined in, including the new people. Always